Now, we all know that this has been a horrible week for America, her allies, and freedom lovers everywhere. And it's also been a terrible week for Joe Biden, about whom even Democrats are now starting to say out loud what we have been saying on this program for more than a year. What has happened in Afghanistan represents the worst humiliation the U.S. has suffered since the fall of Saigon or the Iran hostage crisis. But what is more disturbing is how Joe Biden reacted to this debacle, a debacle entirely of his own making.
Bushwhacking, hornswoggling, crocker is gonna roll away, biscuit cutter.
Now, who can argue with that?
Oh, wait, sorry. That wasn't the President of the United States giving confused, angry justifications for his failure in Kabul. That was Gabby Johnson from Blazing Saddles. Our mistake. Here's the President.
We've all seen the pictures. We've seen those hundreds of people packed into a C-17. We've seen Afghans falling.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
What did you think when you first saw those pictures?
What I thought was we have to gain control of this.
4 or 5 days ago? Actually, sorry, Mr. President, that occurred just 2 days before the president tried to justify himself to American ABC's George Stephanopoulos. But that's what you get when your commander-in-chief keeps track of the days by what color ice cream they serve him after dinner. Here's a bit more from the interview. You tell me if you can understand what he's saying.
When you look at what's happened over the last week, was it a failure of intelligence, planning, execution, or judgment?
Look, I don't think it was a failure. Look, it was a simple choice, George. When the Taliban, let me put it another way. When you had the government of Afghanistan, the leader of that government getting in a plane and taking off and going to another country, when you saw the significant collapse of the Afghan troops we had trained, up to 300,000 of them, just leaving their equipment and taking off. That was, you know, that's what happened. That's simply what happened.
Excuse me, Mr. President, would you like some dressing with your word salad? That interview went on with, among other things, the president claiming that he was never warned that the Afghan government was about to collapse, meaning he was either engaging in a massive act of gaslighting or, just as likely, he simply forgot. And there have been reports that ABC actually cut some of the worst part of that interview, making that the best he had to offer. Now, look, I'm going to be frank here. It's one thing to joke about Joe Biden's verbal miscues and corn pop memories. But the fact is, there's just something not right with the guy. Instead of coming out and owning this crisis, a crisis of his own making, Joe Biden spent the week cowering at Camp David. After the collapse of Afghanistan, Biden vanished for 2 days, only returning briefly to read a speech off a teleprompter and take no questions. Tuesday this week was also a wash, with the president not to be seen. On Wednesday, he read another script, this time about vaccine boosters off a teleprompter. Again, with no questions from the press. When he did make an appearance Friday, it was to blatantly lie and claim that Americans abandoned by their government and trying to get out of Afghanistan were having no trouble at all getting to the airport. Does he really think it's just a matter of accepting the surge charge on a Kabul Uber to get out of there? Look, you get the idea. Where is the guy? And what is going on with him? It's no wonder that in Washington, rumors are beginning to churn about Biden's mental capacity and even using the 25th Amendment of the Constitution to remove him from office. But there's only one problem. Who would take his place? If you thought the obvious answer was Kamala Harris, well, not so fast. Yes, the word around Washington is that she has been sniffing around to see whether she could whip the support she needs among the cabinet. But if Democrats think that if there's a less appealing prospect than sticking with Joe Biden for 3 more years, it's putting Kamala Harris, a woman whose ambition exists in direct opposition to her ability, in his place. Plus, there's this. In the last election, the U.S. Senate went 50-50. Harris, in a role not just as vice president, but president of the Senate, is the deciding vote in that body. If she becomes president, then not only the Democrats lose control of the upper house, but they also lose their 51st vote to confirm a new vice president as required by the Constitution. So, unless Biden's decline becomes even more dramatic and harder to hide, and let's not count that out, the Democrats are stalemated on this one. Sadly, the rest of the world is now too.